Hello and welcome back for our Artist in the Spotlight. Today it's Eddie Wells.
Hello.
Or Eddie Day Wells.
Thank you.
Eddie Day Wells. So welcome back. This isn't the first time we've sat here having this chat.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Posh was.
So the reason we're doing the Artist in the Spotlight is that we can literally shine a spotlight on you for a whole week. Terrified?
Yeah.
The beauty of that is that we can get to know your art a lot better. So speaking of, we have one of them beside you. Can I just say that when I first saw Eddie's art, you were exhibiting at Roy's Art Fair, wasn't it?
Yep.
Which is behind the Oxo Tower.
Yeah, yep.
And I was actually there with my mother. And
Vegetation, Mum.
she came running up to me and she said, "Oh my God, you've got to see this artwork." And it was yours. And I walked up and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." So yeah, it's all thanks to her really that we actually got to meet you and pull you into our little family. But your stuff, can you explain it? Because
Yes. Well, yes.
I mean, it's
But
abstract art and it's layers.
Layers, but it's I always find it very hard to explain. But I think the best, it's like two parts really. And I think the main thing that really struck me is that there's a music element, as in over my life. What I just sort of discovered is that how a certain song, and I think it's only really music can do it. A song can literally stop you in your tracks, and it might relate to something good or bad in your life, but it can literally stop you. And I can actually remember the song that I was working in a bank at the time, and it was a friend of mine had passed away, and I've known since I was a baby. Like a girl I've known since I was a baby, and she took her own life, which is quite not very nice. But I remember, and it was a long and winding road. It was coming out of a sandwich shop, and I just sort of stopped, and I really linked that into her, and. But I think music does it. That's obviously quite a sad part. But then obviously it could be like, it's just that way it sort of, it can stop you as an art form. It can just literally stop, and for a second, you'll go back to that moment, and you'll be able to smell it. All the references will be there. So sort of that was sort of an element I thought. But then when I started making stuff, there's the other part of it is where, like, and I think it's from being a commuter on the tube train, where you can have two people who could do the same journey on the tube train for decades and literally cross paths. So the first one, it was more specific. It's same in colour-wise. There's lots of blues and yellow, and again, I would tangent off a lot, but if you look at the things that are familiar to everyone, I found that obviously there's a lot of blues and yellows with the street lines and the beacons and signs of blue, and then there's sort of things that people see every day but don't really register, but they're in their conscience sort of thing. So by using them colours, it sort of draws people. But the crossing lines one, it was lots of the tube signs and old bricks and all material, which I'll get to in a second. And it was just sort of showing that, reflecting the two people sort of crossing doing the same journeys for a long time, but never actually meeting.
Yeah.
And when they meet and tell their own stories, then you can really feel that, because there's a real connection, because you can really paint that picture behind what they're telling you, because you can see what you can understand where they were. So there's that sort of with the music. But then there's that, and then I suppose a third element is because of the East End side of things, where it's you're making most of things that might not mean much to people, making do with stuff, and that's why I like to use just scrap materials and building up layers, so it's like a city in a sense, where there's lots of things that shouldn't really go together normally, but they sort of just work, and the strength and the beauty is in them layers of life sort of thing.
So you said you worked in banking.
Yeah.
So when you were doing that, had you not gone into the art at all up to that point? Was it later on that you came into this?
When I was at school, which is
a few years ago.
Yeah, a little while ago. Then that was the thing I was good at, right? That was the thing I could go into. I was good at, and there is a story my mum used to say, is that in primary school they went to a parents' evening, and the teacher went, "Oh, he's an artist." But that's what I like. But then we're going back. I won't say the decade because that might be really old. But in my education, if you liked art, that was just, it was, well, that's a nice hobby to have.
Yeah.
But there was never sort of a path to a career. I never even instigated that there was a path to a career in that. So it sounds...
Because it was fun, it wasn't work.
Yeah, so it just bubbled away. But what I didn't realise, so you go for your life doing, and go back to work in the bank, then you're sort of, that creative, if you've got that creative sense of you, which I know now you have to create, if you'll do it some way. And normally, because the art was sort of away somewhere, it's not really, that's why people might drink. It's part, you're quite reckless as a lifestyle. You sort of like, because you need that stage, that sort of place to sort of be a bit outrageous.
So when was the turning point then? When did you turn it around and
step
out one into the other?
I think it's when my dad passed away, 2013, and too young to pass away. Then I think that sort of made you sort of reflect on things, as in, my son was only 4 then, and you're thinking, well, my dad had worked all his life, done everything by the book, career, and when he got, well, literally the day he drew his pension, he passed away. So I always thought to him, like, your retirement's when you can relax and do what you want to do, but you can't guarantee you're going to get that. But I think the whole process of that, it wasn't just, but there's a few people passed away at the same time, which sort of made it a bit crazy. And that's when the ADHD was. That was when that was diagnosed.
You were diagnosed, yeah.
And that's what made a lot of sense, because then you realise that the ability to create stuff and like in art, it's not just. It's just. I mean, making stuff and creating stuff is just. It calms one. It's the only thing in the world that will stop me thinking about it. It goes done.
Yeah.
And then the pleasure as well of explaining it to people and presenting it, because I think there's a part of it's creating it, telling the story sort of in a way that, and then when you present it, there's a thrill of, I think the bit of art you can't really explain so much, is that where an artist has got a desire, because what you do, if you put a piece of art on the wall, if it's at Roy's Art Fair or anywhere, the thrill for me is if someone walks past and stops and looks at it and comes over, that's a massive thing, because and that goes back to me. I've stopped that person from doing what they were doing, and they're looking at that now. So there's them two. But when you realise that you love doing that, and then you realise that you sort of need to do that, because if you're doing them things, then all the negative things you would do done previously just disappear. Yeah. So it's.
So was it a relief to you when you got the diagnosis? Did it kind of all make things make sense?
Everything made sense.
Yeah.
And I think people who go through that process will say the same thing, is that, and especially with ADHD, because it's very well treated. And I mean, once you're treated for it, like, there's lots of ways to treat it, but the medication-wise side of it, I spent 3 or 4 weeks just smiling, because where you just like walk away and you're looking at everything at once. And you're taking it all in, but you're not really looking at it. And I never read signs. That's why a lot of road signs come in, because I was actually reading what things actually said. It was making me laugh, because I've walked past that for years, and it actually says, don't do that, because, and it's just like, just noticing things you hadn't before. Yeah. So there's that part of it, and I think that sort of is overtaken, I think, by a sort of frustration, where you realise that actually, because when you can't help but look back and you think, well, you look back over your life and you see that actually that's actually impacted you a lot. The way and it's kept you away. You realise I thought it was like how it sort of has, rather stealthily, but it's been there all the time. Yeah. And it's always sort of flamed. But then you realise that the negative side of it is very small. Yeah. And the positive side of it is just
because you turned it into something positive.
Yeah. If you find the thing, that which triggers your imagination and creativity and puts all the other stuff to bed, then it's endless. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to explain to people that, because obviously any creative person's got the same thing. You're explaining something which is in your head, and it's been very complex, because you're telling stories here which are always hidden. Like every thing I do is like, it's a personal story to me in there, and there's a song related to it. Yeah. And that would be the song that stopped me, and obviously the layers of London and where it happened at the time.
This is the bit. So obviously then you went into the creative thing, but the actual thing of the construction of how you went about doing this for the first time, I'm so intrigued at how you were like, right, okay, I've got some lead, I've got some resin, I've got some bricks, I've got all these things I've found. where did that come from in the beginning? In that kind of like, right, I'm going to get all these things together. Were you just quite hands-on?
It's like with photographs, and I think having digital phones now and the photograph. Whereas when I was still working, I used to go at lunchtime, and because I was based near the East End, that's what I with my family. It's almost like living in a museum of your own family.
Yeah.
So I used to love going. So my lunch breaks, I'd go around and take lots of pictures, and then I started sort of layering them and sort of making images that reminded me of something like connected to music.
Yeah.
And that was and that's always always behind it is an image. And then it was the layers, and then
actually, there's one down there. Grab that one down, because this is actually the
without
piece.
falling off my stool. Yeah.
Speaking of,
so let's because like each sort of quadrant, well, that's actually a sign, but each sort of them squares are the images. So you could be like 500 photographs, and they're all layered in, and there's. As I go back to like the music, so when you have that musical flashback. So in here, all the little references, so the closer you look, we can't really see it, but there'll be all the little references which are specific to the story I'm thinking of. But the idea is in the familiarity of like the colours.
See, I love this one, Camden Town.
People will see something in there as well.
And then in that top corner, so we've got Paul Weller. Glaring back at us, and it's just so gorgeous.
Well, Paul Weller I mean, apart from his Weller Wells was quite similar, so I used to, I was saying to you earlier, I used to flip, when it was record shops, flip through records, and I saw Weller, that's me in there, but it's not. No. But musically, I mean, I as a musician, I love, massive, because I always liked the stuff, but when I started creating the art, it took another level, because for me, when I'm doing these things, I sort of try and, because obviously when you have that flashback, it's gone in a second.
Yeah.
So I sort of try and sort of put myself in that mood, in that place. And for me, I mean, again, music, whatever someone writes a song for is about something else, but what it means, that's the beauty of it. But for me, nothing else than Paul, not just a jam, but all the stuff going through. It felt to me very suburban London. So when I'm talking stories here, it might be outside a pub or in walking home somewhere. That it always seemed like the sound it gave, then it sort of angst in a bit. It was the right pitch, a bit flat, and I say Bowie's there as well, but Bowie's always a bit more what you're imagining. That's all like what things could be. It was always that suburban London sound. It just really. And so I put my earphones in. So I walked round to places where things happen, take a picture, and I listened to the music until something clicked. And then start the image, and from the image, then go back there and start looking for the scrapping. Well, you may as well people throw away. Yeah. And then get the materials from that area, then start building up. So you almost like putting the story there and hiding it. But the idea that by using the London materials and the colours and the stuff, the transport is bits and bobs like in there.
And you've taken upcycling to a new level, recycling, upcycling.
The idea, But you got the idea, but is that although these very specific moments and memories to me, because of the colours and the familiarity, when someone else might be drawn to it, but their story behind it, but what it reminds them of might be completely different. Say it could be a first kiss, or it could be someone passing away, it could be a fight, it could be getting expelled, it could be anything. And that's what attracts me, is the same set of imagery can stop someone, but it's looking for that.
So this particular image, I'm going to go back for a second. So when we met, and then I said we're doing this amazing thing here called the Sentiment Collection, and then we dragged you in, I couldn't chop up one of these.
You could try, but
with all the will in the world, there was no way I was going to divide that. And the Sentiment Collection is all about connecting through art and dividing them up. So we took an image of your Camden Town one and I printed it onto a canvas. And that was what we've been dividing up, which is really, really lovely. So it is connecting through art, and it's kind of bringing all of your stories to everybody else, isn't it? It's that sharing it. And the whole Sentiment Collection, you really loved the idea of the Sentiment Collection, and it brought you to us as well, which was amazing. So you are also one of our sentiment artists. But we also have here, we've got quite a few of your pieces in the gallery. We've got some in the window at the moment. I mean, that's a big one. That's a metre square, I think, that one. And that's got quite an amazing story. I think is it called A Shot in the Dark? Or
no, it's not about that. No, it's Sun Street Passage, which is a specific road, and where the sun sort of sets either side. In the evening, the sun sort of sets behind the city. Yeah. And it sort of silhouettes the buildings quite a lot. And it always reminded me of that. It's like that was when you finished when you're going out for the night, and that was almost like, because in them days, like the evening the work was just to finance the evening, which was, for me then, the stage to be outrageously even perform. So it's a shot and dark's part of it, because whenever the Pink Panther's in there, the Pink Panther running away is, for me, sort of goes that dun 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 dun. That's the sort of the mischief of sort
the
of
Pink
going.
Panther appears quite a lot in your pieces.
Yeah, and it's always, and it's because of the song Shot in the Dark, but it's always like, that's always sort of a sign that there's doing something a bit mischievous.
Okay.
I'm thinking of that dun 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 dun, and it's sort of like he's crawling off in the background.
The other thing I love that always seems to appear in yours is the little stick man that reminds me of the Saint.
Yeah.
Because he's got the little...
That's right, yeah, I always, that's sort of like me thinking it. So that represents I'm there.
So you've put yourself into
So
the images
so I'm
as well.
looking at it as if, and it's...
Is he in this one? I don't think he's in this one.
I don't, he's not in that one.
No, it's not in that one. But I
I'm in
love
some.
that. You are in some. So we're going to be talking about you a lot this week. And what we will do is we will show a lot of your...
Not the previous art, yeah.
Yeah, we'll show a lot of your pieces. And I think it's a really beautiful way of people understanding where you're coming from. And the background is all about your story.
And
so
it's diversity as well. I like the
yeah.
idea that it is like, especially in these times, people haven't got much, but even from what people class as rubbish, you can make something quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's the song is that it's that thing that the song stops you. It was, well, what would that look like if you could actually
freeze it,
get all those memories and squeeze them into a sort of cube? How is it stored in your brain? So, but
that's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like. So you've got lots of these little cubes in your brain and memories.
Yeah,
that
that's exactly what it looks like.
Comes back and expands. But yeah, and it's making good of something that is not, it's thrown away and
I mean, even
giving it
this
another
one
life.
Here, there's like this tiny little guitar, and little guy with
there's
the
me in there.
balloons.
And there's Campbell Soup. It's a bit of Andy Warhol, because I like that pop arty sort of film when I was young. That's all. I like the idea of it's bold and you can just.
This really is like a snapshot into your head, isn't it?
Yeah, which is worrying. That's worrying.
It's a beautiful worrying.
So the more
thing.
you encourage me, the deeper it'll go in, then
I have to pull you back out again.
These interviews will take ages, but it is. That's the debate. It's a personal story which is probably completely hidden, which I know. So when I look at it, I know exactly what I'm thinking, but it's sort of.
Actually, we had someone
away.
here recently. We had Lee Majors here, didn't we? And there was a scene of you telling him about your jeans in the picture.
Yeah.
So your jeans are in a pair of them, so you can see the zip pulling back. And I think he looked at you, and I'm not sure if he quite understood what you were saying.
That's a beautiful.
But it was beautiful.
Who would ever think that you're working in a bank doing something you hate, then suddenly you're showing your unzipped jeans to
Lee Majors, the
bionic man. And he's looking at you as if, what the hell, like you've got, but yeah.
It was a beautiful moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like things like that, it's moments, life's all about moments, and these are, they're moments, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it's the moments, another thing, it's moments, the moments you create is your, for me, that's your immortality. The more memories you create for people, that's what I have with my dad. He passed away, it'll be 10 years in March. Doesn't feel like that. But once you get over the grief and the loss, then you realise they're never far away, because I'm saying things and like the moments they give you are always being reminded to you. So they sort of live on. So the more moments
snapshots of your memories.
more moments you give, the longer you'll live in people's minds.
It's all about the memories.
And that's what they look like.
Yeah.
In your head.
In your head.
It's like add water to them, they sort of expand into like a really accurate photograph.
I want to show something as well, because with our sentiment collection, at the moment we're doing the double sentiment, which is literally just up until the 7th
romantic sentiment.
of February. But I actually played around with your sentiment piece and I made them bigger. And I put 2 pieces in one, and these are so gorgeous. And you reminded me today, because obviously you know your images better than anybody else. Yeah. And you saw where it come from. So because it is from this image, and it was from this top corner here. And you can see like bits of a map.
Yes,
bits of a map, and that meant something to you that was quite poignant as well, which was really nice.
It's a map, because I can see the road I lived in, and there's little dots in there, but it's where my friends lived. So when you go out at night, you'd knock on each one's house to meet everyone.
That's so brilliant.
So I could just bark inside, actually, which is near all.
And then the edging of it is the brick, isn't it? Is that the brick on the edge on the outside?
There's a brick. Oh, no, it's not a brick on that one, is there?
It's a different one, but...
The brick's there.
That's on there. So what's the yellow on the outside?
That's just all reclaimed wood.
Oh, that's the wood.
So I make it into a frame, and it's covered in yellow lime paint.
Okay,
the bricks are 150, they're like 150-year-old London stock, so that's like got a story of its own.
Someone's going to be knocking on your door. Plus, can I have my bricks back?
You're taking a bit of it's worthwhile, like the individual materials, but history-wise, that's a 150-year-old brick that's been in London. So what history has that seen? What life's gone past that?
They should be putting these in the museum.
It should be. I've got loads of them.
They are amazing.
They tell stories as well. Some have got very sharp black marks in them. And the only way you can get a really dark black spot in a brick is with intense heat.
Oh, okay.
And so it's very unique to like a city of war. So the incendiaries would blast. And it's like, so it's showing its scars of war and everything. There's this,
Yeah.
I can look at I can sometimes get more interested by a wall than a person. They talk a bit more sensibly sometimes, yeah.
What do you think of these pieces?
I love
you
them.
hadn't seen that till today.
No, I've seen some, but I like these. It looks like they're about to kiss as well, which I quite like.
Yeah, they're just touching.
And I'm trying to connect it. Because I'm in my mind. I'm naming the roads.
Yeah.
And the people who live in the houses. But no, I love them, and I think that sentiment thing is to say where anyone, if someone buys a bit of art, they probably buy it because they like like the overall look of it. It fits a job for them. But when these little things like the sentiment of it, you're sort of owning the sort of real meaning of it, because you haven't got the whole picture, but you've just got the actual essence of it.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing to share when we get two more.
Yeah, it really
it's
is.
two
I know,
things
and the two are really, it's all about connection with
and
the two,
it's completely unique.
And it's got the whole image shown on the back, so people can see where it has come from with the details of the artist.
And great thing about it is you've got, when you get all original art, is you've got something that no one else in the world's got. So
and these are.
No one else can look at that. That's just yours.
That is not going to be repeated.
Exactly.
That is
It's completely unique.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah, it's really special. Well, thank you for coming back in today and talking.
Haven't even talked too long. I can't waffle. This has probably been edited loads. Probably about 5 hours I've been sitting there. And it'll come down and just go.
Cobwebs have actually formed.
It's about London.
It's all about London.
Okay. But yeah.
So this week is going to be, all about you from tomorrow, which is Wednesday, but when you're listening to this, it'll be today. And then we will talk about your art a lot until it seeps into people's minds and they understand it like we do, because we love it. So much so that it's actually here and it's in the window. Which was great, actually, walking down the road to see that. Man, that was great. That, live, simple pleasure to see something you created in the window. It's amazing. I could go on. So anyone can come down here and see Eddie's art, 60 The Highway, E1W 2BF. And yes, we will touch base again, over the week. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in. Pleasure as always. Take care. Bye.